came to win, I don't mean to offend. The greatest on the mic, mightiest with the pen. Losing never been a choice, but a line is the same. Ascending, word bending birds, birthed in the gym. Akin to the best, never aiming for less. Opposition so foul, got me calling for rest. Who's next to get bested? Mind, soul, and flesh is antithesis of mess. It's the precious of green. Hold on, you better catch a God, throw him blessings. Dreams manifest, did you get what I mean? God always had a plan, he created for me.
That track was a track that was done, rapped, and produced by your son, your oldest, Taylor Gray. I call him Dr. Taylor Gray because his mama a doctor, and his mama's a doctor, and his mama's brother's a doctor, and
his mama call him Clay. I'm gonna call him Clay. He a doctor.
You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. So Dr. Taylor Clay Gray. You didn't even know his middle name was Clay, did you?
That is not his middle name, people. Taylor Alexander, tag you're it. Yes.
It ain't Alexander Clay Gray, AKA Clay.
Yes, I love it.
That's what I'm calling him now. I'm gonna get him a shirt. I'm gonna make him a shirt that says, "My mama call me Clay." Like his cousin called him Clay.
I'm gonna call him Clay. I'm gonna call him Clay. Love that.
But it's cool. So what we're working on next with that is going to be some video work with it as a intro to the show, outro to the show. You know, we did a nod to a couple of other shows that he and I both like on the streams and on ESPN that we like to kind of have those really cool show intros. And, you know, shout us out, let us know if you like it. If you don't like it, it's too bad. We're not changing it.
That part.
It is what it is. So what are we talking about today? And so wait a minute. So what do you think as a mom though when you hear your son doing something like that? Where does that take you?
Well, I mean, we're a musical family, as you know. So when I first heard like he was into beats or doing this or doing that, I thought about, you know, my experience with his dad and like the late nights in the studio and creating studios in the house. And it's just like this is something like he's gifted to do. And I think the thing that really like, oh my God, I can't believe that's my son. When I heard him like using profanity, and I'm like, you need an advisory on that. But the beats were hard. What he was saying was real. So it actually opened up some conversation to say, you know, son, what are you talking about? Because we're Christian, but he's not a Christian rapper, though some of his raps and beats and things like that are very inspirational. They really take you on this journey. So I've been so impressed always with his writing. He's an author also, and just always been into technology and all those types of things. So to see that gift cultivated really makes me proud that he has an outlet for himself and that, you know, he's doing his dang thing. I'm very proud of him. When I heard that, I had to listen to it like multiple times. So I think he really captured the essence in a way too of who we are. You know, there's a line in there where he says something like the Knight and the Queen or something. And I was like, oh my God, you know, so anyway, I can go on and on about him, but I love that it also picks up from where we left off with that call and then like almost same day response. So I'm really proud of my boys.
Well, I think you did an excellent job, and you know, as a mom, you know, as a parent raising and instilling values. And because there's some kids that don't want to do anything for parents, don't want to do anything for family, and it's all about them. And he's never been that kid. He's always been the one that's involved, and whatever family's doing, he's there. You know, I know he spends a lot of time with your mom, and you know, making sure that make sure everything is solid there. And doesn't he? You know, I don't know if you had to push him out the door, kicking him and drag him down there, but it didn't seem like he was like, no, I'm good. You know, or may have even been his own idea to be involved and help family and just be right there. And he never, whenever he speaks about living with your mom, he never speaks about it as something negative. It's always, oh no, I'm right here, and this, and we're going on here, and this is what I'm planning to do for the day. Or even when we were talking about some of the modifications to making the mix come out better with his vocals and stuff, he was like, well, I can't mix too loud when, you know, Darius is there because I don't want to be a disturbance. I don't want her to, you know, because the walls are thin. So he was always respectful, even with his environment. So I think with, you know, as we, you know, get into the topic, he fits, right? Where he's showing, you know, who he is and showing people who we are. He's showing through his music. He's showing through his personality who he is. I think it's pretty awesome to have a child that does that. And I guess I should even ask you, because I'm just curious, you know, when was the time you first saw that light turn on for him, and
Mm.
not just kind of come on dim with you? No, listen, no, because I'm sure we watch the kids. Sometimes the lights on, sometimes the lights off. Sometimes we ain't sure the lights even plugged in, the light bulb broke, whatever. But for him, when did you see that light come on and stay on strong?
Yeah, Taylor is a very special, special young man. From the time he was 2, he could draw like lucid, vivid pictures. The first
Wow,
picture he ever drew was a picture of his room. We were in church,
wow,
and he was 2, maybe closer to 3. Nonetheless, he was 2. He hadn't turned 3, and he drew this picture, and it was boxes where his bed was and where the window was, and it was clearly his room. And I
wow,
was like, okay, this is very interesting.
wow.
And so I always knew he was gifted to draw. And
Mhm,
then he's always been an avid reader. He started writing stories maybe around 7 or 8,
mhm.
um, and different stories where he would create characters. Again, just continue to advance his skill and his artistic ability. Then he became extremely interested in anime and like Japanese art and things like that. And he's my son who's traveled abroad. He's actually been to Japan, speaks Japanese. He immersed
Wow,
himself in the culture. When we say, Taylor, where do you want to go to eat? He's like, you guys know what I want, ramen, please. So I think somewhere between like that special click of, okay, he's definitely creative, started very early. But when I
wow,
knew that he was actually passionate about it and it was a path that he would go on, I would say somewhere between 3rd and 4th grade, just really
wow.
grabbed a hold of who he wanted to be and what he was interested in, and it continues to progress as well.
Wow, I wish I had the wherewithal to know that at such a young age and be able to do that, and to know that it's everything with home training and everything to do really with the person in general, right? Because some of it is taught, right? There's a shirt that we made a year or so ago, right, where it's
Mhm.
talking about some lessons I have to learn, others I have to
Mm,
teach, and that those are stuff that's really almost innately built into his DNA. It is who he is, and I think that's even cool to show. The show topic is, show them who you are, and I
yeah.
love the fact that he does that, right? And he inspires me because when I was talking to him about the track and going back and forth, just talking about hip hop in general, he said he didn't know, because he and I hadn't talked a lot in detail about what we've done over the years, and he didn't know
Mhm.
I had done music for years and had owned a
Yeah.
studio and been a part of a record company and used
Yeah.
to track and mix and do all this stuff. And now having gotten back into it again at a different
Mhm.
level over these years, it's like I think it's really cool because he and I can use that as a commonplace, right? To
Yes.
show him who I am, so he can also show me who he is through his writing and through his music,
Yes.
and vice versa. So, and I think I always like to use it too as an example where for some people,
Mhm.
if you waited later in life like myself to do and find the authentic you, whether if you already
Mhm.
found it or didn't, or decide to lean into the authentic you
Right.
instead of being the you that other people wanted you to be, um, I think it's great because I think I've shared with him that it's better you find you and be you now while you're still young versus
Mhm.
trying to find the you that you've always wanted to be and then go be
Yes.
you after you are very much older.
Mhm.
That's, like we talked before about getting off the X, you know, that's something that some of us have to be. And I imagine if we were able to live 30, 40, 50, 80, 90 years of
Right.
being who you are
Right.
versus 10, 12.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, ironically, I wore my BU shirt today actually.
Oh, shucks.
Designed this one for Take Off Your Mask event a couple of years ago. And
Yeah.
so yeah, that part about being yourself and actually uncovering who that is, because
Yeah.
it's already inside of us. We just have to really call it out and practice being okay in our own skin. Just going back just for one moment with Taylor and my mom,
Mhm.
Dearest. Dearest is my mom. Even our friends call her Dearest. So she loves that name for her grandkids. Um, but like I had a dream before Taylor was even in high school that he was going to be staying with my mom and be more like a in a caretaker role. And she's not aged to that degree where she needs daily care, but in terms of making sure she's not alone after my dad died, making sure, and I didn't even know that my dad had passed, would have passed away by this time. So, um, being there to drive her, being there to buy groceries or run errands or help her take, the stuff to Salvation Army, help her clean out, or just the safety mechanism. I mean, Taylor's like 5'11", 200 and something pounds solid. He's a
Ain't
big
nobody
boy.
messing with that dude.
No, no, not at all. So I knew in that way he would be special also. He's very connected to his grandparents and the history and our family. Like you said, he shows up when it's necessary, and sometimes he shows up just because he's showing up and he's doing his dang thing. And I'm again just really proud of who he is, and being him can't be easy because there's so many people to please. And that's another thing around, showing people who you are. Loyalties sometimes get in the way of who we think we are being, who we are perceived as being, and then ultimately who we really are, you
Mm.
know?
Yeah, I love it, and I know for those who may have missed it, the gentleman who we were just talking about here, I love those who don't know. We are new to StreamYard, and yeah, this is our background. We did our first episode on Zoom, so if you've watched the first episode and now tuning in to episode 2, our background is in a format. It's different, and we're really excited about that. So we got the little banners and stuff going on the bottom. So, and this is something we like to do, and Michelle was always reminding me that if we're bringing people on our journey with us, there's certain people or certain terms we'll use when we want people to know who they are. So that Taylor, her son, Dr. Knight's oldest son, Taylor, and he's a producer, writer, just overall gifted young man. So, hey, well, your youngest son too is a chef. So it's funny.
Yeah,
Both of your sons have pieces
creative.
of creative life that I
Mhm.
love and enjoy. I don't think
Mhm.
I would do the cooking like your son is doing, Lawrence is doing, but I mean, I love the thought of creative food, but I'm sure
Mhm.
I know he plates much better than me, and I'm really not into the whole plating thing. I just want to pile it on the plate and eat it with crisp good, let's be done. But when Lawrence goes into town, it's like it looks different, it
Yeah,
feels different, it feels like restaurant quality. It
yeah,
looks like it needs to be where it's going to be, and he's very particular about how it looks, and how it looks on your plate, how it's presented, and how it
yes.
tastes, and I can't even imagine it. But I'm glad he will be the art caterer for my oldest son, my middle son Evan's
Yes.
graduation this year.
Yeah, he caters all of our events, and so that's Experience Catering. And we had an event in October. Typically, we do Queen Every Day, which we honor and celebrate domestic violence survivors. And so this last time, his Cash App or whatever it is Silky Johnston. Don't ask me. Do not ask me where that came from.
Oh
That's kind of
Lord.
like the alter ego, I guess, that we were talking about too, and we'll get into a little bit of that. But all the ladies were like, Silky Johnston. Oh my God, Silky Johnston. But
Silky
Lawrence,
Johnston.
Silky Johnston,
I gotta put that out.
STON.
I gotta make sure I have to edit this one because we gotta add Silky on the bottom so people can see his whole name is.
Yes. So he made this chicken that was so tender. It didn't have a bone, but it was just like melting in your mouth good. And I think one of the things that I'm really hopeful that Lawrence will have a chance to do is package his seasonings and his sauces and marinades. I think that's a moneymaker for sure. What he creates when he cooks, the flavors, the I don't know. He calls it pairing, because he's all into the culinary piece. But he's like, this goes with this, and this goes. Some of his dishes, I'm like, man, I'm an excellent cook. This boy takes it to a whole nother level, and so again, I'm really, really proud of our family business, and what we do and what we each bring, because it is a part of sharing who we are and showing up as who we are, and being known for who we really are. And I like that.
Yeah,
I'm grateful for that.
I'm always wondering, how do people show or even discuss? I guess you can't show who you are until you discover who you are, and that's really not true, but it is true at the same time. I think we can't show our authentic you or us
I think that's the
until
word, is the authenticity of that being.
yeah
Mhm.
until we figure it out, right? Because we and I were talking and preparing for the show. It's something that we think we're showing other
Yeah.
people who we are, but yet when other people are experiencing us in real life, they have a different take or can have a different take of who we really are. And sometimes I figure, I know across the course of my life, I got
Mhm.
frustrated and angry with people who didn't understand me. And that was always a big thing in my marriage, where you don't
Mhm.
understand me, or the people I was dealing with in business or in
Yeah.
work or just friends. They don't understand me. They don't understand me. But I had to later admit that, as I do a lot of self discovery, that what
Mhm.
I was projecting to people
Mhm.
was, in some cases, a direct opposite to who I really was. And
Mhm.
what I thought people were thinking and doing and receiving me or perceiving me,
Perceiving, yeah.
was totally different than
Mhm.
who I really was, and thinking I was projected or wanted to project.
That's
And
it.
so now, at this point in my life, for the last decade, I'm actually spending the time trying to figure out what that looks like to me.
Mhm.
I'm really focusing now on how I get that across, and make
Mm.
sure my message is there. Um, just yesterday, I had two. I think it was yesterday and the day before. I had two really focused conversations with a person
Mhm.
who was in a leadership position over me, and
Mhm.
I had to make sure that I got my point across, that I didn't enjoy how they treated me, but
Mm.
did it in a way that was respectful of their position in their office. But
Mhm.
I still couldn't shy away from the fact that what they did was dirty and wrong.
Mm. Mhm.
So I think that helps when we find the voice inside, that when we need to turn it up, we turn it up. When we need to turn it down, we turn it down. But it always has to be heard, no matter what the volume is.
Yeah. Finding a voice, that's a powerful thing, and in my practice talk about that quite a bit, especially with women, who stereotypically, it's like, oh, well, you're a woman, be quiet, the man is over you, religion, all of these theories that men are superior in some way to a woman. So I think that while a man definitely needs to find his voice, because it could come across as aggressive, overbearing, the stereotypical things that men are known for, loud, all of those types of things, women kind of get lost in the shuffle there. So finding our voice to be able to say and speak in a way that is, like you said, respectful, regardless of the tiers of leadership, regardless of what have you. I would always tell my kids too, you can say anything to me if you say it respectfully,
Mm,
if you say it in a tone where in your body language and your presence is one of, I'm saying this because it's important to me.
yep.
And I want you to know how important it is to me, because going forward, I'm teaching you, just like I taught them, how
Yep.
to respect me and how to treat me. They're doing that too back to us. And sometimes that doesn't feel good when a person exerts their authority in that way. But that's where the tone, the intent, there's a difference between intent and impact. And even though I may not have intended to say something in a way that was offensive or hurt you or what have you, the impact was the same. So I have to acknowledge the impact of my words and the power of my words. And while I'm trying to find my voice, sometimes that can sound like 10 different people, because I'm trying to discover, what that sounds like and what that feels like, as I'm honoring what I'm sensing and feeling in myself. What I'm now recognizing as truth for me does not have to be truth for you, but it still needs to be respected in a way where I'm honoring, we're honoring one another. And that's the tough thing about relationships, when you are showing people who you are, because maybe I may not like who you are, and I could have been in a love relationship with you for 10 years, 5
Yeah.
years, and I'm figuring out that's not who I thought you were.
Yeah, yeah. I was just watching a show a couple days ago on the same topic, and it's funny how the Lord does things. Where I've been involved in a whole lot of things that were really related to the same topic, but just coming from a variety of different places. And
Mhm.
that was one that came up where this pastor was saying, "Hey, I don't really care if people go through premarital counseling and then they talk in their counseling, they talk about how I've known this person for so many years. Well, the pastor was saying, do you know them when times were good?
Mm-hmm.
But also, do you know them when times were bad? Do you know them when they were having to show the true expression of who they were during a tough time? Have you seen them angry? Have you seen them
Yeah.
sad? Have you seen them doing well? And when they're at their worst, if you can
Mm-hmm.
say that you've seen that person in those variety of experiences,
Mm-hmm.
then you can honestly say or determine if you really have the same love and want to be with them over time.
Yeah.
Or do you think, I don't think I like that as a
Mm-hmm.
person? As being a widower, right, and getting back into the game, to get into a committed relationship, I find myself purposefully sharing who I am as I'm walking it through, because I want, based on the topic that we are on, I want to make sure the person knows who I am, and I want to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that I know who
Yeah.
I am and what I'm showing.
Mm-hmm. I was, as you were, I do my little
Oh yeah, no
of
pet
here.
outside.
So courage, courage not only to find your voice, but to use your voice
Yeah.
to say, I don't like that. That doesn't sit well with me. I don't give you permission
Yeah.
to speak to me that way or treat me that way. I remember that was a pivotal point for me and Big Daddy. When we started talking and dating, Big Daddy is Steve, my husband. Um, so when we started talking and knew we were developing a relationship, I remember saying to him, I'm not changing again for anybody. I've changed my hair, I've changed my look, I've changed my style. I know who I am now, and I like me. I'm okay, even with my weirdness, my quirks. I like me, and I don't want to change. So if
Yeah.
you're gonna date me, then you have to go to my church because you don't have a church for me to go to. So
Mm.
until you figure out what church you want to go to, and if that's a place where we can worship together, then I
Sure.
need you to come to my church because I don't want to change that about myself either.
Yeah.
I remember, going through my process and my journey of healing, that I had experienced every type of abuse that categorically is possible: mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, sexual, financial.
Sure.
I experienced all of that, and so I was ready to tell
Mm.
him my truth because I didn't want to go into another relationship where the only thing that I cared about, at that time was, oh, no sex before marriage, and if I have sex, oh my gosh, I need to get married because you know I didn't want
They
to.
want to
I didn't.
burn. They want
I
to
didn't. I
burn.
didn't. I didn't want that for myself. I wanted to make conscious decisions. And the thing that stood out to me is Stephen said, well, I don't want to, if my kids don't like who I'm dating, I won't date them
Mm.
either. And I thought, the nerve. These kids are grown. These kids are like married with kids.
Yeah.
And then, like, immediate conviction. I was just sharing the story with someone else over the weekend. Literally, conviction came into my heart. And it was like, how come you can say what you want, but he can't say what he wants? And in that moment, I also realized, and forgive me for this statement in advance for whoever's watching that knows who I was married to before. I realized that I had never really dated, and that I had never really dated a man.
Wow.
What I mean by that is
Yeah.
a person who knew themselves, who wasn't afraid to show me who they were, who was responsible for themselves, meaning he had a job, he had a roof over his head. He'll tell the story sometimes, I was homeless when I met Shell. Technically not quite completely accurate. He was planning on moving back to Minnesota, where he's from, to have a third back surgery. And so he had sold everything and was living in his RV for that transition. Nonetheless, was working, taking care of himself, got
Mhm.
an apartment once he realized he was going to stay, got a condo, actually, townhome. And then we were able to continue our relationship together. But that was the conviction. I, I was showing who I was, but was I ready for the other side of that, for someone to
Mhm.
show me and risk being rejected because I'm not the, the queen bee that I thought I was. I know that I am,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
I was ready to face rejection at that point to put me on the line. But then when it came to receiving who the other person was, I had to check myself.
Yeah. No, that's huge though. But it takes, like you said, it takes a lot of courage, and that's one thing one picture we put on the screen so people understand.
Hmm.
Courage is key, I think, to everything that we do. If we don't have the courage to be us, if we don't have the courage
Hmm.
to show other
Yeah,
people who we are, if we don't have the courage to get up, stand up, you're not going to be able to
you're
be
right.
successful. Yeah, no, I was going to go there, and I thought, yeah, I'm not sure they could rock at the Bob Marley, but if you're
Listen,
following along with our journey, it's going to be a lot of musical references in this show. That's
for
just who
sure.
we are, so we're showing you who we are. In fact, you know what, we may have to put some musical sound bites up in there so we can just click them from time to
I
time
love
so
that.
it pops in, pops out.
Love
But I
that.
think, finding that courage, finding that place of being, I think it even comes in our spiritual life, right? If we have the courage enough to realize that the Lord's got us, no matter where we are, no matter how we are, no matter where He has us, we're going to be better. In your practice, how do you help people find that courage?
Yeah, I think the readiness is the biggest thing.
Mm.
Like I have um, a client that admits to running away when things start getting hard, right?
Oh,
And not wanting to,
I'm not the
not,
client. I'm not that
I,
client,
I
but
know, I know,
I
but
am
it's
the client.
common,
Yeah.
and so um, she runs away when things start feeling overwhelming, even though she's making amazing progress to admit some things to herself, to begin that process of forgiving herself for things that um, don't even but really belong to her.
Yeah.
She runs, and so I noticed a pattern. So I called it out. I'm like, I noticed that every time you start making progress and you're manifesting what it is that you want, and you're putting into motion your mindset and your affirmations and speaking out, and so you're seeing those things happen. Number one, you start thinking, I'm good, I don't need to do this anymore. But it's the habitual practicing of those things that get you out of the muck or out of the stuckness
Yeah.
quicker,
Yeah.
because your brain is able to process things a little bit quicker when you realize. um so I think some of those things that I just said, like um helping them to realize their patterns, whether it's running, whether it's that fear that creeps up, that fear of success that I talk about was divinely inspired to me. As a seventh fear that I talk about in my practice is that we have this fear of not being worthy of the good things that are ours,
Yeah.
because we're stuck in a place of the past of what we've done wrong or what we have allowed people to do to us, those things that we're carrying that don't belong to us. But that fear of success keeps us in this space of, I'm not worthy to receive what's on the other side of this trauma. So there are other exercises that that we do. I have a rewrite your story, and that was a whole retreat. And through those conversations around identifying the culprits, identifying the people in your story, what story did you tell about them, what story did you tell about yourself, what story did you tell other people about your circumstance with them, because all of that is what we're playing in our brains.
Yeah.
And then we're wondering, oh, who can see the truth, because sometimes what we share, it may be our truth, but it's not the complete truth. Dadism. There's three sides to every story: your story, their story, and the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a part of showing people who we are, is not only sharing our truth, but realizing our fingerprints in the story that we've told about others, making ourselves the victim. And that can really be damaging.
It can be
Really be
huge, really damaging, because it takes a lot of courage also to
damaging.
admit our side of any story, of any
Yeah.
situation, any time. And because I mean, so often we know I'm not at fault, I'm good. There's no
Hmm.
wrong with being perfect. Telling me I
Yeah.
got the perfect hair, I got the perfect nails, I got the perfect
Hmm.
tats, and some folks don't like tats. That's on you, and you don't like the way I drink in my silver cup. But this is bomb because it's me. But there's certain times we realize that for some people and for some places and some times, those are stumbling blocks. Those are hindrances. Those are things that offend other people. And we may do something. I may have hit somebody over the head with my silver cup, not because they were damaging to me, but it's just, you know what? I don't like it. I'm just going to bop you in the head. Case in point with Jackson, my youngest boy, he doesn't like when people poke him. And you know, and I think one of my love languages is physical touch. So I'll go by and I'll poke him. But we later found out he doesn't like that. Physical touch is not his thing. But he does like hugs. So it's kind of like, wait a minute, you do have physical touch is your thing, but there's something under the poke that gets after him, gets under his skin. So though you may understand a person's love language, you may not know the process or the method that they want that love language, spoken or applied to them. So I think as we're going through the courage part and in realizing who we are and using the tools that we'll be discussing here and sharing, that people have to understand there's more than one tool for every job.
Absolutely.
I can't use a hammer to take out a screw. You can, but it's going to leave a larger hole for you to try to repair than anything else. And I definitely don't want to use a hammer to change the tire on my car, because the lug nuts and that hammer aren't going to be friends. And by the time I get done beating that lug nut off to get that tire off of there, I got a whole bunch of more repair work, to do after all of that.
We were just yesterday we were going to pick up the kids, and they're doing a lot of construction on the mountain that we live on. And so there's so much construction. So we're at a T in the road, and our street is the T part, the long part of the T. So we were coming in to this intersection to go left. And so we're waiting there, and this city worker is scooping up like leftover tar or something. I don't know exactly what it was, a black material, and they're resurfacing. So I'm assuming it was tar. So he had this beveled shovel, and he wasn't getting anything into the scooper of the, what is that thing called? Now I'm thinking about Bob the Builder.
The front loader. The front loader.
Yeah, whatever the tractor part of the scooper part.
Yeah.
And so he was like struggling, and I was like, I said to my husband, thinking I'm so smart, I was like, he needs a square head shovel for that, because he's like he's trying to dig a hole, but in reality, the tool that he was using was digging a hole versus scooping up the rubble. And no faster than I said that, he threw that shovel to the side on the dirt and got a flat one. And he was like, moving full steam ahead. And so that made me think about the tools that we use. Just because you have access to a particular tool doesn't mean that it's the right one to use, going along with your point. But sometimes we're trying to move along quickly using the same tool or the same thing that we always have used. And that doesn't work either. So that goes to the courage to realize I need to change something about the way that I'm moving about this particular thing. I've always done this thing, and it's gotten me this result. And sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not. But when it's no longer serving us, we have to be open to, it's important to be open to look at a different path, to look at a different tool, to look at a different method, to then take us to that next level that we want. He was moving full steam ahead when he made that decision. So, yeah.
And I love what you said too. We really have to be open to change, right? And what kids always say, read the room. Seriously. You have to figure out where you are, assess what tool you're using. And as parents, that's a big thing for us, right? As our kids get older, spankings aren't going to do the job, right?
And spankings don't do the job for every single child.
Facts.
They don't do the job. Your motivation, your what my mom called it, currency. It's different.
Yeah.
Same thing in the workplace. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And once we realize that, we can't be afraid to change. We can't keep thinking, well, if I just do it more, if I spend more of that currency, or I keep using that tool over and over, it's eventually going to net the results I want. It's going to eventually net a result. Oh yeah, for sure. But you're going to sometimes, in a lot of cases, have a lot more damage done by the time we get done with the job or get the result we want, now we got a huge cleanup, a lot more work. My back is broke. I got, all kind of extra problems because I should have changed that tool sooner. And I know some of us, we think it's a hit to our pride to admit we're wrong
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
admit that we've got to change something. And we don't need to be afraid to admit that we're wrong and that we need
Mhm.
to change. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that's something also that we need to have as a tool to help us show people who we are, is that show people that we're open to change.
Yeah. There's something that came to me a long time ago about change. And you might have remembered, I don't know, maybe it was sometime last year, I post different quotes or inspirational things. And one of them was simply, do you really care?
Mm,
Do you really care? And the responses that I got from that ranged from no to yes, I kind of do,
yeah.
to people laughing because it hit their funny bone, like, dang it, I really don't care,
Yeah.
um and so with that, something that came to me before I posted that years ago was, do I care enough to change? The
Mm,
feedback that you're giving me aligns with me, even if it was delivered in a way that I really didn't appreciate, but I could take a second to think about, is that really me? Dang, yeah, I probably should have did that a different way. Then I'm open kind of to hear feedback from that person again and make a change. But if what somebody is telling me does not resonate with me at all, or I'm not in a ready state to hear it, then I don't care enough to change. I don't, I'm not in that place where it's important to me. And that bunny trail took me to ruling by fear,
yeah.
meaning, um, I talked a little bit about domestic violence earlier, and you're only going to scare me for so long
Yeah.
with your words and with your actions until I realize I don't have to do this anymore. I can change my environment. I can change the situation by
Mhm.
dealing with me, by not staying in the place where you have that rule over me. And again, that courage, that openness, that readiness, it matters how sometimes that information downloads to you as to the decision that you make next, that next step that you take to get off of that X.
Yeah.
So anyway, I hope that made sense because
No, it does. It's huge because
yeah,
if we don't make those changes, if we're not reading the room, if we're not really paying attention or care enough to look at how our actions, how our responses are affecting other people, we're going to be in a whole world of hurt, and we're going to find ourselves alone at many stages in our life, wondering what the hell just happened. I had a good friend and they're no longer there. You've been married and they're no longer there. Your kids were once around you, thought that you were great, and then all of a sudden they're not there because over time our actions drove these people away. It showed them who we were acting like.
yes, yes,
It may not be who we genuinely are on the inside. We may have thought
yes,
our intentions were great. And, oh, I know what I thought I was saying this, but no, you were actually, what you said was this.
yes,
That may not have been what you meant to say. And
yes.
what's the old saying? It's not not what you say to
What you
someone
say is how
matters.
you say. Yeah.
Right.
No, that's real. That's real. When you talked about just moments ago about driving the people away
Yeah.
that are in our lives,
Yeah.
sometimes that emergency room experience or that surgical experience of being in the process of changing
Yeah.
requires isolation, requires that you're not opening yourself up to have toxins in the room or have certain things. So it doesn't
Yeah.
mean that I don't love you. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that I don't care about, your well-being. There are some people out there I had to learn to relove, right? But I'm talking about in general, family. Knock it off. With your dad's shirt on. I love it. You made that one. You made
Yes,
that
I did.
one new, huh?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Uh, but you can't afford to be exposed to certain people, personalities, things
Yeah.
while you are going through your metamorphosis. It's not healthy. So until I figure out who the heck I am and where I am in this caterpillar butterfly process, chrysalis process,
Yeah.
I have to withdraw just a little bit. Just a little bit. Don't mean
Yeah.
I don't love you, but
Right.
I can't call you and talk to you every day while my dream is unfolding. I
Right.
cannot go and hang out and do the things that I was doing before, no matter how much fun it seemed in that moment. That's distracting me from
Yeah.
what it is that I'm supposed to be doing while I'm on this healing journey of getting to my next. And
Yeah.
when I'm there, things may still be different because they have to be different now, but they're different with a different level of understanding, not just because you think I'm being a person that I'm not. I'm becoming exactly who I'm intended to be.
And I think that takes a whole lot of courage to do just what you said, because we don't realize how much our dreams and goals and visions and our purpose means not just to us, but to God and who He would have us to be. That we've got to go after that. I know, regardless of who goes with us or not, right?
Yep.
We've got to be able to stand and walk alone, right? And get all the way no sleep till Brooklyn and be willing to be that trailblazer, because sometimes we're going to find ourselves out on a road, out on a place in front of everybody where there is no road. There, you may be the one who's leaving the path behind you for others to follow. And there may be, in some cases, a light road. Maybe someone had a road scraper out there and just scraped the dirt out there, and you're following after them. But it's going to take a few more experiences for the blacktop or the concrete road to come and the lines to be put in. And it can get lonely out there. And if we're really not serious about this thing,
Yeah.
we might turn back.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to go back. There's nothing in Egypt for me. And then you mentioned about being isolated. I've isolated myself on several different occasions, several different seasons, from different people for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And in some cases, it wasn't because I didn't love them anymore. I mean, I always have that love for God for them, but I don't like a lot of people because of what they've done. And I used to feel I had to apologize for it,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't apologize for it anymore, because for some folks, when I drew the drawbridge up and I dug the moat around my castle deeper and wider, and I stayed inside to make sure I wasn't any longer, hurt by people. And I took it obviously a real literal step and said, I don't want to be hurt by death or loss anymore. That's foolish. That's not that. Even if inside everybody in the castle could die because I got the drawbridge stuck and I can't get out to get supplies or water, we're going down on the inside, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the Lord had to show me that I was like this little tiny little man with this big old nose and ears, trying to lean against the brick wall, trying to hear somebody on the outside, and then yell through the brick to them again, to talk to them. And you really can't help people from behind a wall. You just can't do that. You have to come outside, lower the drawbridge, and get out there and become vulnerable again, and have the courage to do so. And that can be tough.
That's powerful. You can't help someone from behind the wall. That's powerful.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
Tough.
It's interesting because when I think about the different walls that I've built up previously, and when they came down, crumbling down, it was when I was able to really forgive myself. I also, people say, forgiveness is for you. It's not about the other person. And when I put that into play and started, I was very selective when we talked about selective speech, but I was also selective about the conversations that I chose to have around who I had the conversations with on my forgiveness journey. Some people, I just decided I was going to live. What did Dr. Phil say? Live with the apology that I will never get.
Yes. Yes.
I had to continue to live my life because their opinion and their reason for me wanting to change.
Yeah.
Did I care enough? No, because they were actually hurting me. And if I was hurting myself to hold on and drag this person along with me to this finish line that they didn't even really want to go
Yeah.
to. So I had to live with the apology that I never received. Okay. So that was one. Other conversations that I chose to have, I wanted to be sure that they were healthy and based on how I wanted the future of our relationship to be. And that apology was necessary in order to begin a new relationship. Meaning, if it was, for instance, if it was my sister or my brother, a blood relative, my sibling, I had to apologize and then restart a new relationship with them because that apology forgave what happened in the past. We're no longer those people. I'm no longer that person. And then we had to work to create this new future together. And then there was another group where I apologized to myself for my behavior with them and I forgave them without the apology because I didn't believe that they had the capacity to understand where I really was
Yeah.
and how their role in my life was no longer healthy for me.
Mm.
So I didn't have a conversation with them to say, "Hey, Craig, I'm not going to be hanging out with you anymore." I just changed my behavior.
Yeah.
I owned what I needed to do in order to make that possible and love them, respect them, cared for them. But there was no need for reconciliation once I determined I knew who they were and I knew who I am.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. I have several relationships like that too, where, you have to be courageous enough to speak your truth because your truth is always real because what belongs to you. And it's the same with the other person. We have to be strong and courageous enough also to hear the other person's truth because just because I'm upset at a person or if what I find that they're doing to me is hurtful and toxic to me, we don't know how our behavior is coming across to the other person. And I know I had a situation with one of my family members that told me, "Hey, I didn't know how to talk to you anymore after your wife died." I'm thinking my immediate response was like, well, I had a few choice words that were probably 15 and 18 letters long, in my brain, asking them, in my mind, asking them what was wrong with them. But I had to later in life understand that it was true. I was a different person. My language, my English never changed. I didn't start speaking Russian or Swahili after my late wife passed, but the method that they thought they could use to reach me was no longer the same. And that's okay. I had to then own my part of the retreat and the changing. And I know we have to afford grace to people as we go, but at the same time, we have got to really apply grace when we're speaking to people and season our words appropriately and do our best to move the hurt out of the way. Because I know, the drill, hurt people. And I used to think that's a cop out when I was much more arrogant and much younger. But it's such a true statement that we do, in some cases, hurt the people that are the closest to us, that we love the most, or we thought who loved us the most. They don't get the best sides of us all the time.
Yeah, we were talking about that different sides. And so one of the things that you and I shared is that there are times where a different part of our personality shows up. Right. And I was saying, anytime that I'm doing something that is important to me or that I really believe in, the Bible says this too. It has no sorrow with it. So if I'm doing something for me and there's sorrow to it, and I have to become, or I feel, or I think I have to become this different person to show up in that moment, then I'm not honoring my authenticity either. And so we were talking about the difference in our kind of like alter egos, and my person that shows up ride or die, ready, unfiltered is Shell. But that's what most of my family and friends who really know my personality, outside of Dr. Knight being the educator, the academician, the life coach, to this, that, whatever, those titles, right? Shell is a fighter, not like a, not literally like I'm gonna go out and start trouble kind of a fighter, but I'm not a
There you
punk,
go.
and I stay out of trouble sometimes. But I'm not an instigator in that way.
Yeah.
I'm talking about a fighter for life. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna make it. So let's talk about your person.
Oh, Tyrone.
Yes.
Yeah. You better call Tyrone. Yeah. That's my thing. When things get ugly and tough and I want to just smack somebody in the mouth and knock every one of the teeth out that the dentist put in and the doctor or the mama
Mm,
gave them, that's
listen.
Tyrone. When I really want something to get out and get done and get grimy and ugly, that's who I used to call. But at the time now I had to get to a certain point where all of the aspects of my life had to come and I just had to
Yeah.
accept them as one, right? Yeah, as a 12-year-old, I had a fight with a kid that was older than me. I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember the fight. I remember the start
Mm-hmm.
and I remember the end. And I
Mm-hmm.
vowed never to be that angry again.
Mm,
But so I locked that part of me away instead of integrating it into who I was and say, you know what? That's a part of me. It's not a
mm-hmm.
part that I like. So I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
work on that and make it better and
Mm-hmm.
understand where the anger was coming from. Did the
Yes.
same thing with the memories of my late wife. I was angry at her. So all the bitter parts that didn't work well in the marriage, I didn't even want to say her name because everything that was bad was coming to me at the top of my memory, ready, ready, ready. And
Yeah.
so I used to strike her from the record. But the Lord had me remember, for me to be whole,
Mm-hmm.
Tyrone's got to be there. And
Mm-hmm.
all of my life experiences to that point with my late
Mm-hmm.
wife have to be there in anything. My parents, both of them,
Mm-hmm.
have to be there for me to be whole. And accepting that was the best thing that has happened to me thus far in my life, minus my kids and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think what realization that I had was I didn't even realize that there was a different personality or
Sure.
tone or showing up
Sure.
when I am me in all aspects, but
Sure.
also when I'm Shell.
Yeah.
And so my and it's funny, my older inherited kids call me Shell, like Mama Shell. It's kind of funny. Just making that thinking about that. But my youngest son, Tate Lawrence, he was getting in trouble at school. And
Mhm.
I shared with you, we called him the people's champion because he really wasn't fighting just to be fighting. He was
Right.
standing up for
Right.
kids that were being bullied. He was standing
Yeah.
up for handicapped children. He was
Yeah.
standing up for special needs kids. And now he's an instructional aide at one of the local elementary schools doing pretty much the same thing. So
Sure.
this was an important part of his journey. But when he was in junior high school, he had gotten into a couple fights, and I was up at that school several times a week, and I was like, Lawrence, this is enough.
Yeah.
And so finally he got into one fight, and it was big. It was a big thing. Police were called. It was big. So he said, Mom, I'm telling you, this was not on me.
Right.
He said, and I said, well, I'm the one who has to come up to this school and figure out what the heck I'm supposed to say. You out here showing out. You got me up here. I got to leave my job. All of this stuff. And he, Mom, okay. He said, I don't need Dr. Knight to show up today. I need Shell from Skyline to show up.
Yeah.
And Skyline is where I grew up. I need Shell from Southeast Dago to show up. And I'm like, okay, well, what is he really saying? So, and that was, Lawrence is 19 now. So that was, at least 5, 6 years ago. But I didn't realize that I showed up differently when I was in that kind of mode where I'm in protection mode, where I'm in logically it makes sense, but I didn't know that there was a different presence and a name associated with who I am in
Sure.
those moments. So that's been an interesting journey to, like you said, incorporate and recognize who I'm being,
Right.
even when I'm being me completely. Who am I actually being, and how is that perceived, and how they can call upon me to be someone different when they know I'm capable of being that person. All of that is just fascinating to me. But
It's amazing who we are. And as we wrap, to really help people understand, who Shell from Dago may be, as I'm typing that. So we would have that in our a list of things to uh, put on our banners. But it's important that people realize who we are. And it's important that we realize who we are, because it's not a matter of we should ever have to worry about what we're portraying. We should be more concerned with what's on the inside, right? I'm a superhero fan, so there's the Hulk, right? When Bruce Banner understood that the Hulk was inside, he told people, you won't like me. Don't make me angry. You won't like me when I'm angry. And so that's sometimes the only thing we have on the inside is the anger. But there's more inside. There was a rap song that said there's 5 people inside of me. Well, there's more than one person inside, and not some, mental health problem. But it can become mental health issues if we segment our personalities and personas into these compartment or siloed events that don't interact with each other. And sometimes when people do that, again, there's some mental health conditions that are associated with that as well. But those of us who think that we're okay will become siloed off, and those personalities, those experiences become separated. And sometimes we may find ourselves stuck. So if you happen to find yourself in a stuck position, if you need some counseling, contact Dr. Knight. She's a great person, brilliant life coach, probably one of the most brilliant minds I know in this and other fields. So reach out, hit us on social, on email. Michelle, give everybody the email so people know it. I'll put it up on the screen below.
Yes, I believe it's Knight&Craig show at gmail.com.
Put that up on the screen for folks. If you
let
need help.
Let me verify that, because sometimes, let's see. Yeah. Knight and spell out AND Craig show at gmail.com.
We appreciate you guys. We'll leave that up on the screen as we're going out for our last commercial. And I'm gonna even we have to end the show and put the music back on. I'll make sure I turn it down lower this time so it's not so loud. And so Michelle, let me know if the music is too loud. If it sounds low enough, we can still talk and interact. But that's it. We enjoy everybody for staying on the show, enjoying every time that they're here. Definitely, as I'm looking away, I'm trying to make sure the volume is set just right. Because it is a live recording, so we may not be live on your TV, but we live at the moment of our recording. So shout out to Taylor Gray on the production track. Shout out to Dr. Knight. Shout out to all of you for joining us right here on Knight&Craig.
Awesome. Knight&Craig. Thank you, Kevin.
Akin to win, I don't mean to offend. The greatest on the mic, mightiest with the pen. Losing never been a choice, but a line is the same. Ascending, word bending, birds, birthed in the gym. Akin to the best, never aiming for less. Opposition so foul, got me calling for rest. Who's next to get bested? Mind, soul, and flesh is antithesis of mess. It's the precious of green. Hold on, you better catch a God throwing blessings. Dreams manifest.